For Telesur, I'm Cody Weddle in Caracas, Venezuela. We start in Brazil, where Brazilians have re-elected President Dilma Rousseff after a dramatic campaign and a tight finish. The country's first female president will have 4 more years in office after receiving 51.6% of the vote to her rival Aécio Neves' 48.4%. The Workers' Party candidate promises her government will prevent a return to neoliberalism, defend wages and jobs, and deepen social justice and equality.
É o que é uma reeleição.
A re-election vote is a vote of hope, especially for improving the actions of those who have been governing. I know that is what the people say when they re-elect a leader. That is what I've heard from the voting booths. That is why I want to be a much better president than I have been up until now.
Foi o que eu escutei nas urnas. Por isso, quero ser uma presidenta muito melhor do que fui até agora.
As you might imagine, supporters of Brazil's Workers' Party stayed up late into the night celebrating 4 more years of progressive rule in Brazil.
After 3 months of hard work, we got a result in the polls. Dilma is president, with the force of the people behind her. Dilma!
Dilma! Our correspondent Stephanie Kennedy in Brazil has been covering this race for months now. She continues her hard work for us today with the reaction from Brazilians following this historic campaign. Hello, Stephanie.
Good day. Well, we bring you this report the day after tomorrow, as this Monday morning, Brazil wakes up to a further 4 more years under re-elected President Dilma Rousseff of the Workers' Party. Now, last night, the results came in extremely quickly, thanks in great part to the electronic voting system. And as those results came in, the emotion here kept on building up, leaving finally Dilma Rousseff with 51.64% of the votes and candidate Aécio Neves with 48.36% of the votes. Unsurprisingly, Dilma Rousseff and the Workers' Party consolidated their support in the poorer northeast of Brazil, whereas Aécio Neves consolidated his support in the city of Sao Paulo. Now, Dilma Rousseff has promised to fight against corruption in all spheres of society, as well as pushing now, more than ever, for political reform. Now, we met a lot of the social movements here in Rio de Janeiro, and they have all expressed their support for the Workers' Party, but demand that reform be made within Congress in order to represent a fairer division, a fairer representation of Brazilian society. So that's something these movements will be working for alongside Dilma Rousseff. There is a lot of discontent still with local governments who have divorced themselves from the social agenda of the Workers' Party. A reflection of that is that here in Rio de Janeiro there were more blank and null votes than for any other candidate. That's all for now. I'm Stephanie Kennedy here in Rio de Janeiro.
And thanks to Stephanie for her work throughout this whole campaign. Maybe she can enjoy that beach now. Brazil's neighbor Uruguay also held presidential elections Sunday. With almost all votes counted, the ruling party, the Broad Front, led by Tabaré Vázquez, received 47.8% of the votes. That will give the party control of parliament. The result was just 2.2 percentage points shy of winning the presidency outright. Vázquez will now head into a runoff election against his center-right rival, Luis Lacalle, from the National Party. In the first round, Lacalle trailed behind him with 31% of the vote. Broad Front supporters proclaimed the first-round results a victory for progressive policies in Uruguay.
The Broad Front continues having the majority. We are moving forward. The left continues changing the country for 5 years, and you should be excited and celebrate. Onwards.
Turning to Mexico now, where 1 month after their disappearance, community members still search for answers following the disappearance of those 43 Ayotzinapa students. Thousands gathered for a rally in Mexico City's Zocalo Square Sunday. Prominent left-wing leader Manuel López Obrador called for a civilian investigation into the case. The disappearances have sparked public anger over government corruption. The case has led to the discovery of mass graves, police involvement with gangs, and criminal links to governors and mayors in Guerrero State. This Monday, Argentine President Cristina Fernandez will lead the country in remembering 4 years since her husband and former President Nestor Kirchner died. Known for promoting issues such as human rights, regional integration, and the participation of youth in politics, Kirchner was a prominent proponent of the UNASUR and SALAC regional blocs. He will also be remembered for the symbolic removal of the portraits of Argentina's murderous dictators from the walls of the military academy in 2004. In world news, Western countries have ramped up protective measures against the Ebola virus. Now, that's despite advice from the Red Cross Secretary General Monday that panic and fear are only fueling the epidemic. Meanwhile, United States leaders say nurse Kachi Hickox will be released after she filed a lawsuit for being kept in quarantine even after testing negative for Ebola. Ebola is not transmitted by people who are not showing symptoms.
He developed symptoms till he was safely placed in isolation.
And to Ukraine, where pro-European parties were given a boost as a result of yesterday's elections. President Petro Poroshenko's party garnered over 21% of the votes, as did the party of his ally, Prime Minister Arseniy Yatsenyuk. That makes further moves towards integration with the EU and NATO likely. Heavy shelling was reported Monday in the eastern regions controlled by pro-Russian separatist areas, which were not able to vote. The government and eastern rebels have been at war for 6 months, during which time some 3,700 people have died. We go to the Middle East, where Kurdish resistance IS is still fighting against the Islamic State group, or at least making an attempt. Kurds from Iraq's Peshmerga army accused Turkey of going back on their promise to allow them through to help. Ankara said it would allow the troops through following international pressure demanding that the country help its neighbors on the Syrian border. Over 800 people have died in Kobani's 40-day battle against the insurgents. U.S. airstrikes are continuing in the region. And we end on a somber note in the world of sports. 22-year-old rising baseball star Oscar Taveras was killed yesterday in a car crash in the Dominican Republic. Taveras was an outfielder for the St. Louis Cardinals. He was killed alongside his girlfriend, 18-year-old Edilia Arvelo. The young Dominican was considered to be one of Major League Baseball's top prospects. Cardinals chairman Bill Dewitt called him an amazing talent with a bright future who was taken before his time. Exact details of the car crash remain unclear. More on those stories and others at our website, telesurtv.net/English. For Telesur English, I'm Cody Watto.